Another question is good for everyone. Do you see a time in the future where all states will have the same weight laws, especially concerning self-propelled motor vehicles?
No.
No. Absolutely not. Doubtful.
I'd also like to say no.
Check. Hey everybody, Todd Dills here, your host for this Overdrive Radio edition for March 23rd, 2026. It's the week of the big Mid-America Trucking Show, kicking off with setup ongoing through the first part of the week, officially opening Thursday in Louisville, Kentucky. But this week's podcast looked back on a different conference held late last month in Birmingham, Alabama with the Specialized Carriers and Rigging Association. What you heard up top was a part of a fascinating Q&A with state permitting officials called, appropriately, Permitting Unplugged, which took questions from attendees put to officials from 6 different states all around the nation about, effectively, what they could do to help the oversized and overweight haulers in the audience. What you could do to help them, too. But yeah, don't expect a national system for size and weight permitting anytime soon, though efforts at increasing harmonization are always in discussion via the SC and RA group, no doubt. Iowa Department of Transportation permitting lead Alex Jensen, the very confident no you heard in the last of the responses to the question up top, explained just why immediately after the round. Reasons are certainly understandable, and dovetail with our big highway report card from late last year charting the very different struggles in a variety of states with their own terrain and particular infrastructure characteristics.
All of our bridges are built to different standards, different ages. We have different engineers, pavement, even the characteristics. Like I've got a lot of bridges because I got a lot of waterways where guys out west don't. Like the geography, the road conditions, the bridge condition, it's all different. Unless the feds come down and mandate something, the states are going to be 50 different ways of doing business. And I know it sucks, but it's just the way it is, unfortunately.
Yeah, unless we can get Jeff Bezos to Amazon Prime us the new structure, I don't see that happening.
The second voice there was that of Brandy Thorpe, Virginia Department of Motor Vehicles permitting lead. Also represented on the panel, you'll get a full window into, in this week's Overdrive Radio, are an alphabet soup of state permit handling agencies in addition to Iowa DOT and Virginia DMV, including Wyoming.
I'm Troy McAlpine. I am with the Wyoming Highway Patrol. I've been with them for roughly 13 years. Started off as a port of entry officer, doing all of the manual routing, size and weight, permitting, moved my way up to a DOT inspector. And now I'm the port of entry operations manager. I'm overseeing all of the port of entries for the state.
Louisiana, down along the Gulf Coast, too.
Hi, I'm Julie Gotro with DOTD in Louisiana. I'm the manager of the truck permit office. I have been in the truck permit office for 42 years. I love everything about it. I wouldn't have been here for 42 years if I didn't. Love the people, love to see all the changes that are made. In 1980, when I started, I could not have imagined what it is today, how big the loads are today.
You'll hear a lot about those increasingly super complicated moves on the podcast today, still requiring lots of manual route planning, though technology has enabled effective auto issue in most states today at a very high rate in many, including in Oklahoma, also represented on the stage by Mitch Surratt.
I'm the Deputy General Counsel for the Department of Transportation. I've been with them for almost 35 years. I took oversight of the way station and port of entry program in 2008, and then we took over permitting from the Department of Public Safety in July of 22, so just less than 4 years ago.
And finally, Indiana, home to Overdrive readers named worst haul route in the nation this past year, I-70, where state reps noted bigger and heavier loads were certainly a factor in road wear and tear, in addition to unique state challenges, no doubt. In Indiana Department of Revenue's Julie Sullivan's intro to herself that follows, you'll hear a bit of her answer to the question of the panel moderator. Joanna Jungles with the ATS Heavy and Oversize Hauler about just what panelists loved most about their work, too.
I'm Judy Sullivan. I've been with Indiana since 1995. I resigned in 2006 with little ones. The youngest one went back to school all day, went back to the field. So 30 years total, 10 on the other side. So I've been on both sides of it. What I love most, you guys. We love the phone calls that come in and the assistance that's required or needed. How can we help you? Seeing it go from paper maps and struggling to get permits done in 3 days to now we're getting them done in 98% auto issue rate.
For the oversized and overweight haulers out there, keep tuned through the end of this one. After some questions from the moderator, the second half of the panel really heats up with questions from the audience of your peers, including this response by Iowa DOT's Alex Jensen to the question of what a carrier could do to get himself banned from permitting in the state entirely. Was there a kind of 3 strikes or other cut and dried rule in that regard?
You hit a bridge, you're running without permits, you kill a construction worker, we're shutting off at their recommendation right away. We'll go through the administrative suspension procedures if we need to, but I can count on one hand the number of times it's ever gotten that serious. It's usually just, someone's off route, someone gives me fake documents and we suspend them for 14, 30 days and then turn off system issuance, or do the same thing where, okay, well, we're going to have law enforcement escort you now, where we wouldn't have before, to make sure, and they do a full level 2 inspection before you get moving, and they'll often catch things that you probably don't want them to catch. So just do the right thing.
Much more where that came from after the break.
Out here, every mile matters, so make every mile count. Diesel fuel is the lifeblood of your engine, and the cleaner it is, the better your truck performs. That's why there's Howe's Diesel Defender. It removes water, boosts lubricity, and cleans your entire fuel system, helping you burn fuel more efficiently and squeeze every ounce of power from every drop. Used at every fill-up, Defender means more efficiency, better performance, cleaner fuel. If you're counting miles, count on Diesel Defender from Howe's.
You can find more information about all of Howe's fuel treatments promoting a cleaner burn, fuel efficiency, and more via HOWES, HowesProducts.com. Starting off the round of questions, here's ATS's Joanna Jungles, current transportation chair for the SC&RA Association, followed by an answer from Iowa's Alex Jensen.
With that, I'm going to ask, what do you want your OSOW customers to know about working with you and your specific agencies? What's something that you think would help the audience or even other states know about how you work, how you do business? Maybe it's something that we can do differently, or maybe it's something that's challenging. So however you would like to answer that one.
One of the things that, unfortunately, the payment processors for us have stopped holding credit card authorizations longer than 5 days. So if we're working on a large load for you guys that's having a lot of rerouting or taking multiple days to get figured out, we might have to contact you to get payment before we can process the payment or the permit again. And we get a lot of questions of, well, are you double charging me? It's just that hold is now expiring after 5 days, where previously they would hold it for like 30 days. And it was outside of our control. It was something the bank did. I don't like it, but unfortunately we haven't been able to make that go away. One of the other things is our permit system has a feature on the routing page. There's a box you can check. So if you want us to do something, you have a specific comment you want us to pay attention to, or you need some special assistance, check that box, because that will flag the permit for manual review and will come right to us for us to look at. And on the flip side, don't just hit the auto route button on a 19 high load with 200 failures and submit it to me with no comments, because then my staff look at this and they're just like, what are you trying to do? Work with us, put a comment, hey, I need to start here, I need to end here, or, let us know something so that we can help you, basically. That's kind of where I'm going with this.
Summary. Help us help you. That's how we feel too. Just kidding. Okay, that was meant to be a joke. Thank you for laughing. Thank you. Just realized as it came out of my mouth that can be taken the wrong way. But no.
There's a lot I would love for y'all to know, but I think if we did that, we could probably take up all 3 days.
The voice there, Brandy Thorpe, Virginia DMV.
first and foremost, in Virginia, and I'm pretty sure I speak for all the other states as well, is safety is our number one priority. And that's not just the safety of the traveling public. That's not just the safety of our bridge instructors. Sorry, DOT, but although that is a very important issue, but we also try to keep in mind your drivers and your loads as well. So sometimes we might do wild and crazy things or deny something and you don't understand, but our biggest thing is to realize that we try to take all of that, all encompassing safety into, account to make sure that we get everything and everyone where they need to go. And that is probably the biggest thing I'd like everyone to know. Another thing is Virginia is somewhat unique. There are a handful of states, I believe, that are separated in different agencies. And so DMV handles the permitting side, and then we have like our bridge instructor with our VDOT side, our DOT side, two completely different agencies. And sometimes some of the delays you run into, some of the confusion can be part of that. We work very, very closely with them, and I know that it can cause delays. But that is another thing that if you're not familiar with the process in Virginia, that is it. It is not just the DMV permitting side. We also work very closely with an entirely different agency to make sure that we get you routed safely.
So in Wyoming, we're going through somewhat of a transition phase. We had a huge, terrible, antiquated system for permitting before, and we've just recently switched within the past year to Pro Miles.
And Troy McAlpine, Wyoming Highway Patrol.
One of the nice things with Wyoming is there's a section in there towards the end of your permit where you can select a port of entry. What that does is if you have any routing concerns, you need any approvals, it will throw that specific permit to that location. We have 14 ports of entries, so we have 100 customer service reps that are able to help you with your permit, and they'll help work with you. They'll give you a call back if that's what you've requested, so on and so forth. So we've been growing with the industry as well in Wyoming recently. Also, one of the other key things that I would love to touch on is don't be rude. You want to work well with Wyoming? Don't be rude. We appreciate it. But other than that, we're always here to help, and we always try to strive for education. So if you ever have any questions, you can go to our website, and any one of our port of entry people can help you out.
I guess what I'd like y'all to know is we do a lot of permits. We do 600 to 1,200 permits a day. And I think that's one of the biggest states, and we only have 5 people that deal with that, as well as the 4 supervisors.
Julie Gautreaux of the great state of Louisiana.
So we work very hard. We're on call 24 hours a day, and we want people to call us. If they have an issue, call us, and you're not going to have to wait for 3 hours to get through because we are very, very efficient. So don't call the governor. Don't call the secretary, because guess where it ends up? In my lap anyway, and we've already wasted half a day. So if you have an issue, call me.
Let me think about this. I guess there'd be a couple things. We also are just getting ready to change our permitting system. We're almost issued our notice to proceed, I think, this week with Pro Miles. So we're moving on about a $150 million construction program. So we're going to build half a dozen or so ports and upgrade a bunch of our facilities over the next few years. As far as agencies, we have 3 agencies that work in the permitting / oversize overweight area. And DPS does the North American inspections and handles those in the ports of entry, but then the Oklahoma Corporation Commission actually operates the port and writes some of the tickets. So it's 3 agencies. Sometimes I feel like I'm babysitting children and breaking up fights between the 2 of them, but that is a problem. And then finally, I guess I want to say that being just in our almost 4 years of doing this, we welcome questions. Call us if you have. We will work with you if we can. I have the ability to waive some rules. Can't change the statute, but we can do some things to help. So contact us. Let us know what your pain points are, and we'll do our very best to work.
Oklahoma's Mitch Surratt there with what will be a theme throughout the talk. Communicate, 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 essentially, as clearly as possible to get the best result from any state permitting office. Seems simple, but as Judy Sullivan in Indiana emphasizes, getting clarity isn't always the easiest thing for state officials to do, or for carriers sometimes to understand what's useful and what's not.
Indiana is also multi-agency. Department of Revenue issues the permits. Department of Transportation governs that. So they set all the policies in the code, and then we follow it. So when you have an application that is over 200,000 or is delivering or picking up in a restricted area, and we have to override restrictions, there is a delay because it goes to our district office. They release it, and then it goes to, if it's over 200, it goes to our bridge team. And then if the district approves it, then it goes to your cart. So those types of things cause delays. For the over 200s, if the schematics are incorrect and they're not matching what's on the application, that delays. Pencil drawings, I've seen some interesting ones. We prefer the ones we can legibly see. That helps. The rear view drawings, having the spacings showing and reflecting inner and outer spacings. I guess that's about it.
What recent or upcoming technology improvements are making the biggest impact on your permitting operations? So the biggest or more recent upcoming technology improvements that make an impact.
As far as upcoming ones, we've done a lot previously, because if you knew what our system was like before we moved to the one we have now, it's like night and day. But upcoming, we're currently working on a network update. Probably would be the most biggest thing that you guys would probably notice.
Alex Jensen there, talking about the permitting portal system set up in Iowa.
The underlying data on our route network is rather old. We've recently switched to a Google-based base map, so the imagery that you're seeing on our routing page is now based on Google Maps instead of the Bing Maps that it was before, and we've gotten positive feedback on that. But we're working on fixing some of the issues with the underlying route data. So one thing that anyone who gets permits in Iowa knows is we have our local roads in the system as well for routing purposes. Even though you still need to get your permit from the locals, we include that in the route just for ease of the driver following the route and stuff like that. But a lot of that data is kind of out of date. We're trying to update that and fix it to get rid of some of the errors to make routing to your final destination a little bit easier. So that's probably the biggest change we have coming up, hopefully here in the near future.
The talk took place in late February, and Judy Williams spoke to an update that should be in place now through the Indiana Department of Revenue and DOT as of early this month, pertaining particularly to superloads above 200,000 pounds in that state.
Updates. March 4th, we have a new sprint that's going to come out that is going to have the turn-by-turn. You can scan your QR code and get your turn-by-turn directions audibly read off. You can also follow it on the app. The end dates, we can change end dates for restrictions. Currently, if you are issued a permit and a restriction pops up, right now you're just getting an email that says, hey, this came up, you have a valid route. Have you traveled? If you have already, no worries, but we may need to do an amendment. The advantage to that is going to be the ones that are over 200 and that have the route surveys. Because if it starts in the system and it's flowing forward and everything's good, and then NDOT puts a restriction in, it's not going to read it until you go to pay for it. And then it's going to pop up a restriction violation, and then we're back to square one. So this enabling us to change that end date is going to help that tremendously. It's going to speed up that process of the superloads.
I think I want to talk more about upcoming technology with the bringing on Pro Miles. We're going to work with Quarter Hill and Pro Miles, and that new system they'll give us height, length, and width of every truck that comes across one of our ports of entry or weigh stations, so we can then validate permits and know if they're actually what they say they are. So those of you that are putting things on there that maybe not be 100% correct, we'll be able to know that, and those will be pulled in and the permits will be revoked.
More enforcement, sounds like, will be enabled by that update from Oklahoma's Mitch Surratt. Louisiana's Julie Gautreaux followed with this update for both permitting officials and trucking users.
Okay, well, we just did where you can review a route after the permit's issued. It's a zoomable, because before we just had a static route after the permit was issued. And so now the customer as well as us can zoom in and out and see exactly, because when it's that little, it's just kind of hard to read. Some things that people don't like that we did was we had to add routes to our annual permits. And one of my favorite things that we have is a search where I can draw a line across a road and it'll tell me what permits cross that line for whatever dates or size or whatever I put in. And we're always asking, what can we do different? What can we do to make it better? So yeah, we have a great system, and it has to handle a lot of permits. So yeah, we're thinking every day. So if somebody's got an idea, let me know.
Currently, right now, with the upcoming technology, we are still trying to incorporate all of our vendors together. One of the biggest things that we want to try and achieve is cutting down on the driver's requirements to physically come into the port of entries, because we're still one of the very few states that requires that.
Wyoming, that is. The voice of Troy McAlpine again there.
Time is money, and we need to get the good carriers back on the road so we can focus our efforts on the delinquent. We're going to be exploring virtual port of entries. It looks like we're going to be implementing one on 789 coming out of Colorado, and then up in the northeast corner on Highway 212 between Montana and South Dakota. We're looking into putting 2 virtual ports there for ultimately permit verification and electronic screening.
Well, in Virginia, I have a slew of things I want to do. But a lot of those changes are on hold right now because we do have a lot of behind the scenes kind of things that are going on that are more DOT focused. So we have a lot of updates that actually a lot of states, I believe, are going through with, bridge data, load rating data, things like that. So we have a lot of that going on right now. I know we said recent, and I don't, that's subjective. So I will say, as far as the biggest change, honestly, and I'm probably going to sound like a broken record, but is when we launched our new system also with Pro Miles. I mean, it changed the game. I've told so many people before I actually started working on the state side, I was on industry side, and I absolutely hated Virginia's permitting system. So when we got the opportunity to get a new one, and the ease that we have and just the growing technology, with all types of permitting systems and everything it can do and that it keeps growing, just all the changes. But just getting a whole system brand new, was just the biggest impact on turnaround times, which hopefully you all have experienced the joy in that. And that's overall the biggest impact, I believe.
I think of that, and as you go into a new system and hear about, like, they'll put the bids out in a state, and I just think of, like, that time that it takes and the amount of effort. And, I think of your staff. I'm sure it was challenging at first, but it's like you cross that hill and then so much better. So speaking of change, what upcoming legislative or regulatory changes do you believe will most affect our oversized overweight permitting in Iowa?
TBD. Our legislature is in session right now, so I can speak to bills that are pending, but nothing's passed or signed. So, take this with a grain of salt. There's a bill right now to raise our IFTA sticker costs from 50 cents to $1. I know, big money. But it costs me 92 cents to make those stickers. So I'm just trying to not lose money on every sticker I sell you guys now. And then also, we're an ag state, so we get a lot of ag-focused legislation. There's a bill to raise the weight of our fluid milk permit up to 136,000 pounds from 96. That's because of economic development. They're looking at building a new dairy processing facility and blah, 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 but that's what's going on. But I can speak to a couple of things that have been implemented recently within the last couple of months that you may not be aware of. Iowa raised our night movement width up to 13 wide. We were at 12. So that's been in effect now for a couple months. And then also, I'm sure you guys are aware, we're one of those states that requires you to be registered for the weight that you're carrying. So you used to have to up your cab cart weight through IRP to match whatever the heaviest load you wanted to travel in the state for, or have it raised before you could come in, that kind of thing. Back in October, we implemented a policy change to do away with that, sort of. On single trip permits, you can now get that registration put on your permit. So you no longer have to raise your cab card. That tonnage fee is included in the permit fee now. So you don't have to go and up your IRP cab card to 200,000 pounds. They just put that little surcharge on the permit for that 5-day window that it's valid, and you're good to go. So you could have an IRP cab card at 80,000 for Iowa, get a permit for 400,000 or whatever you want, and we just bridge that gap with the fee on the permit. So you don't have to worry about that anymore. And that might be why, if you've noticed Iowa fees being a little bit higher than they used to be, that's why.
Luckily, I'm going to knock on the only what I have, which is paper. We don't have a lot of big stuff that's really going to impact oversized, overweight industry, which we are happy about. I will say, and this is going to be more on the driver's side, and I think this is going to be a positive change, is that we have a bill that is moving through, and it looks like it's going to pass and likely get signed, of where enforcement of motor carrier citations, so if you're in violation of IFTA, IRP, UCR, things like that, will now be enforceable anywhere by enforcement instead of just a fixed weigh station. Sounds like a bad thing, but it's not, because what that means is currently enforcement that's not at a fixed weigh station will issue a driver a motor carrier citation, and that goes like against them personally, their personal driving record. Now these citations can be issued as a civil penalty that will not directly impact their driving record. So no points will be added to their license and things like that. So I think that's actually a positive thing coming through legislation that looks like it is going to pass. So.
In Virginia, again from Brandy Thorpe of the DMV there speaking. Troy McAlpine in Wyoming followed.
Currently, we don't have anything on the books specifically for size and weight. Last legislative session, we had a couple of pretty big changes. We implemented an entirely new permit type, specifically for prefabricated buildings. That went into effect statutorily, and right before that, we had our Chapter 5 promulgated rules and regulations updated. We updated the most significant change within that was the definition of the non-divisible load. We tried to implement a little bit more common sense into that. We're trying, man. We're trying. We added, handrails and things for safety that are correlated to the load, and more specifications for additional equipment, outrigger pads, non-OEM outrigger pads, things of that nature. And directly after the implementation of that, I have reached out to carriers, and I'm encouraging all of them to contact me, because I will go out to the industry after they've read the current promulgated rules and regs, and just like last time, they will help me formulate and point us in the direction that's most comparable for safety and industry. So that's an ongoing process, but effectively in the future, as of right now, we don't have anything on the books.
They're always looking at the price of our permits. We went up, I think, like 6 years ago on overweight permits. But the oversized permits, when I started in 1980, was $8 a day, and it's now $10 a day. So I don't think we've gone up enough. But they did create some new permits for us, which was a single unit dump truck, earthen materials, and concrete raw materials. It's not really something, they're yearly permits. So it gives them a variance on a percentage variance, but they can't use the interstate. So it's all local roads.
This is a little more in my wheelhouse. I think there's 5 bills that I'm working right now. There's one that they're wanting to raise fees. They're talking about inflation, indexing, things of that nature. There's nothing set for certain, but I think there will be something come out of it. We did do some rewrite on our administrative rules, and they are sitting there now. They have to approve them. But a couple that come to mind, which went from 80 to 90 feet on not requiring an escort, which harmonization, there you go. We tried to do that. And we'll look and see how that works for us. We also, we changed dual lane from 16 to 14 feet. So once again, trying to help with trucks coming through from the Texas or going into Kansas. So, and then there's a couple enforcement bills. One that affects the radius of the Corporation Commission away from one of the facilities, how far out they can go to do enforcement. And then there's one that may affect who does enforcement and how that works, but that's not our problem. That's their problem. But
Indiana's quiet on that front. And if there was anything, NDOT governs all of those types of changes. I do know that they're looking at what is code, what is policy, what is law, and looking at some of those and why are some of the things the way they are. Can we change them without, how do we change them? They're looking at some of those things.
Judith, I love the fact that they're looking at it and saying why and does it make sense. When I think of the states that we work with across the country, like the ones that have it in something that's more of a policy and it's able to be adjusted as needed by those who are closest to it, it works so well. I think of like Maryland where they do like the pilot programs and they try it because they're allowed to do that. But you start talking code and we're not hauling what we were hauling in the 80s and 90s. And even though we're still only charging $10 a day. Some things change and some things don't.
The interplay between administrative systems established by policy and the underlying state code Joanna Jungles and Judy Williams were speaking to there, you'll hear much more about in the round of audience questions that follows. One piece of news that emerged you may have caught at the conference had to do with a Massachusetts effort to raise the weight threshold for what's determined to be a superload and what's not. In that case, the change is requiring a code change, necessitating a legislative effort, not just an administrative adjustment. The Q&A got going with the option for conference attendees to just raise their hand and deliver it themselves, but Joanna Jungles also displayed a QR code on big screens both sides of the stage that enabled attendees to type in their particular questions, which really got the conversation going. The first question came from a live talker.
For Louisiana, you mentioned for your annual permits having to have a route. Is that for each move or say we have the same route that we use multiple times a day? So do I need to have 5 routes or will one work for that day?
I mean, you need to check it for that day that you're moving and you should have been doing that to begin with because we have standalone route planner just for that. So that was the whole idea behind it was that whenever you were ready to move, you just put in your dates and your dimensions and it would say, yeah, this route works. So now, though, we're making you do it because the feds wanted us to do it. So we're doing it. But, it's something that should have been done all along. And in the 6 months since we implemented it, there's been about 1,800 routes done with 230 or so permits. So, it is being used.
I was just going to ask a clarifying question. So we don't do too many annuals in Louisiana, but he had mentioned like sometimes they have an annual and they might use more than one trip a day. So if he checks it in the morning, does he need to do 5 of them or just one?
No.
Just clarify. That's how dorky I am, you guys. Like, letter of the law, what do we need to do?
We do have some questions from the text line. The first one is for all states. Generally speaking, what's your turnaround time on a single trip routed permit from application to issuance?
Single trip turnaround time for your favorite carriers?
For the permit.
Sorry, single trip.
What's your turnaround time on a single trip permit from application to issuance?
I mean, it could be instant, or it could be up to 4 hours, typically, is what my average turnaround time is. But it varies. I mean, if you've got a 500,000 pound transformer, that's going to take me a little bit longer than a wind blade. It just really depends on the characteristics of the load. But on average, 4 hours or less for Iowa.
Yeah, I'd say we're about the same. You say single trip, but then there's different variations of single trips. We kind of have what we consider like a routine, which is your smaller stuff, and then a super load. A routine, you can get back in 30 seconds, or it may take an hour or two, just depending on what we have. A super load may take a day or two. Obviously, the bigger it is, the more complicated the route, the longer it will take.
In Wyoming, I think we're at about 42 to 45% of automatic self-issuing. As far as the ones that have to go in our office, it's extremely contingent on credentials load. We are seeing an average of 3 days for our super loads that require bridge analysis. Other than that, the ports, they can generally get it turned around in about an hour or two.
We automate 80 to 85% of our permits. So those are instantaneous. Super loads, oh Lord, 4 to 6 weeks. We have a lot, and they are big. There's a lot that goes into super loads, but our super loads are weight driven. So it's over 232,000 pounds. That's a super load, where 18 high is not, 16.7 wide is not. The bigger size ones have to get a route approval. That can take 2 days. But if your permit comes into us, to our dashboard, it's done within 30 minutes, But the more complicated, the bigger, it takes longer. But no, our super loads do take a long time.
We're automated at about 73%. Our goal is within 3 days. A lot of our analysis is done outside with an outside bridge engineering firm. So we shoot for 3 days.
Our single trips, again, similar to the rest of the states, depend on dimensions. We have rules in our system. If it's a return trip, it goes for our manual review. If it's a split trip, it goes for manual review. If it's a junior agent cube, which would be under the 110 long, 16 by 15 high, those are usually about 10, 15 minute wait. Over the super load to a senior agent queue, maybe an hour or two, and then super loads are 7 to 10 business days.
Another one on escorts. In states that require law enforcement escorts for loaded and or unloaded travel, when law enforcement escorts are not available at no fault of the carrier, can additional civilian escorts be substituted?
If there's no law enforcement available, it's required on the permit. Does Iowa make exceptions where you could have additional private vehicle escorts?
We do not, although we're pretty lax on what we require to be escorted by police anyway. But there's a statute that doesn't allow private escorts to conduct traffic control. So if there's ever a situation where you're taking up more than one lane, you can't make turns, you can't make minimum speed, we have to have police there. And it doesn't have to be state police. It could be local police if you're moving just across the border into that one county across the state line. We can do that. But if you're going across the state through multiple counties, you're going to have state police. But typically, their turnaround time for scheduling in Iowa is no more than 2 or 3 days. I mean, if you contact us on a Friday, it's not going to be until Monday or Tuesday they can get you in. But we typically turn that around fairly quickly.
So that is an ongoing pain point in Virginia, and I think several states is, just enforcement just isn't what it used to be. Unfortunately, only blue lights, certified and, law enforcement officers are allowed to detain traffic, reroute traffic, things like that. So civilian escorts cannot be used instead of enforcement. However, DMV actually has their own law enforcement division. They are fully certified law enforcement officers. I guess they could arrest me on the road if they wanted to. But if you are unable to procure state police, local police, whatever it may be, reach out to our permitting office, because we can work with our law enforcement division to see if we can get you one of our folks to help you with those escorting needs.
So Wyoming, yes and no. Wyoming requires law enforcement escort for specific route changes. Essentially the big ones, the turnaround on the interstate, wrong way on the exits. But in a lot of those areas as well, it's a joint effort between enforcement and the private pilot cars. So they work in conjunction with each other.
If you're required to have a state police escort and you cannot get one, then call us. And we will, first, don't lie. Because I will call them, and if they tell me that, oh yeah, it's just going to take a few hours, then too bad, so sad, you're waiting. But if you can't get one, we'll let you go with police. We want blue lights. It's not a very common thing, but sometimes you may need 2 or 3 escorts, and we'll say, okay, 1 state police and the other 2, blue lights. But we try, we work with you, but like I said, don't lie, because I remember.
The short answer is no. You're going to have a trooper, but I'm not aware, and I may not have been told that we've ever had a situation where we couldn't get a trooper. They just have to be, you have to plan ahead.
We have our CVED that does the over 200s, or I think it's over 17 wide. In short, no. Counties can do it. Some counties will assist, but if they can't be replaced with civilian.
The kiss of death for oversized overweight loads is overall height. Should carriers look to add a few inches of height on their permit to try and make travel safer for taller commodities?
All right, we'll let Alex start.
We hold 2 inches already, so if you're doing it too, then there may be a lot of places you can't go.
Yeah, height is already, as you said, the kiss of death, and there's only certain parts of the state I can route something that's over 18 feet high, and if you're padding that, it's only making your life worse because, we have a fudge factor built into our analysis, and we don't permit you for the exact clearance of that bridge. We have a 2 to 3 inch buffer depending on the structure, and if you're adding to that, that's just limiting yourself even more. So don't do that.
Like everybody was
No. Let us do the fudging. You don't.
But if you do add it and you can't go anywhere, sorry about your luck. Just saying. But Wyoming also implemented, we now have sensors on some of our highways as well that will signal you with a light if you've tripped the sensor. Essentially, if you trip this sensor and these lights go off, you will hit this bridge. So we've implemented that, and they've added a couple of inches for that as well.
I'm going to throw in just one area from a carrier aspect. I will say that I do it when I'm checking for route options. So that's one thing. If we're looking for different options, we're going to go from point A to point B. We will put in like an application, and we will pad the dimensions for the height, because at that point it kind of helps us identify pinch points, but that's not how we're going to submit it. But it helps identify pinch points. So you're like, hey, this surveyor, it says we can go under here, but at this point, if we have like a long load, we want that pinch point because we know that there's maybe a 6 inch, and 2 inches is a lot. Unless you're 190 feet long, then 2 inches.
Another question for everyone. Permit amendments for everyone. Can you please consider amending permits that are very expensive when a mistake is made by the customer, or voided, and allow us to reorder?
We understand things happen, and but don't call me 6 months from now to make a change. That's not usually going to work. But yeah, I mean, a lot of people call us just even an hour later and say, "Oh my gosh, I got my permit back and it's wrong." So yeah, we make changes.
Yeah, same day changes or before the route starts, no problem. Halfway through the route, maybe not so much. work with us, help us help you, give us accurate information up front, and you won't have these problems. I know sometimes equipment breaks down, whatnot. We have no problem making revisions, but we have to, there's nobody in this room, sure, but there are people that try to play games and scam stuff around, and just if it's before it starts or the day you order the permit, you realize a mistake, just as soon as you find the error, call us, email us, we'll take care of it. The same thing as other states, we're on call 24/7. If you have an issue on a weekend, you find there's a problem, still call our office. It'll get routed to the on-call person. They have the ability to log on from home, make the amendment. The only thing is, if the dimensions change upward or the weight changes upward, that'll trigger a reanalysis, and it may have to go back to bridge. And that, is why sometimes I can't give you, it back for free, because we have to go to bridge and that whole analysis fee and all that stuff. So just be mindful that there's a lot of moving pieces to that kind of thing.
So in Virginia, with single trip permits, whether it's superload or not, once your permit is approved, no, we are not going to allow any changes. And that is because our system does kind of basically like a live analysis on your route based on your dimensions and everything else. So once that's done, especially if it goes to VDOT, you're going to have to resubmit a new permit. Don't panic if you're broken down or something like that. We totally get it. It happens. Just let us know. Hey, this happened. I'm on the side of the road, whatever the case may be. Here's my new permit. This is what I need, and we'll work with you.
So for our Class Bs, if there's an error that's discovered, we can work with you on that. We'll always make the proper changes that we need to, barring a violation. So just give us a holler. If it's Class A load, that's obviously going to make a little bit more. It's going to take a little bit more time to get that done. So
I'll go at it a little different way. We're currently doing rewriting all our rules, and so this last year we went through and changed some things, and this is a topic that we're going to take up this next year, and that'll all be incorporated with our new permit system.
The question, I think, was directed more to the more expensive ones, the superloads. Our system doesn't allow amendments on those other than power unit changes, but there are always exceptions, I think, and they're looked at as the situation arises. How can we assist? How can we help in that way? So,
our next question, a weight question. Do you have a percentage buffer on larger loads around 200,000 pounds that are hard to get on a CAT scale? Clarify meaning having to depend on empty weight plus the certified weight of the load to get your total gross weight.
In Iowa, we are going to tell you, pay for a permit that's equal to or greater than the actual weight of what you're moving. However, if an officer runs you through the weigh station or pulls out the portables and weighs you on the side of the road, if you're within 5% of your permitted weight or your registered weight, they're not going to give you trouble. It's when you're beyond, because they have a bit of a buffer in the statute that, to account for variances and things like that. But if it's beyond that, they're gonna, you'll get a citation for that. So at least that's how we handle it.
Virginia is similar, although our enforcement people probably won't tell you that, but they will generally give you a buffer. They will also, it's actually written in our regs that if you're in a situation to where maybe you might need to shift weight, they're going to give you some time to be able to do that. So as long as you're kind of like within, you're not exceeding the gross weight, maybe it's on your tandems, trides, quads, whatever, they will allow you time to shift that weight to avoid any kind of citation. But as far as the gross weight, you better be at it or below it.
Wyoming, so we do have a little bit of a variance for actual permittable loads. I said a little, unless you're over maximum allowables. So that's the biggest one. Once you exceed the 55 on a tandem, 65 on a triple, 74 on a quad, you're done. You are in automatic violation. It doesn't matter if it's 100 pounds. If it's within that maximum allowable tolerance and there's a little bit of variance, we'll work with you on that portion of it. As far as the Class A loads, what we've generally done is, especially with the new permitting, is we used to, on our Class A clearances, to get you to the port of entry for permitting, you could give a an estimation without exceeding maximum allowables. Now what we can do is through the Class A office, we'll do that, and we will have you run on that permit ID number as a Class A load to the port of entry. So then you can weigh, we can adjust those weights, and you can actually pay for what your actual permit is.
If they're over what they're permitted for, then, and they go through the scales will call us, and we will make the determination of what they can and cannot do. There's always a little bit of variance here and there because the scales, may be different. Their scales may be a little bit different, but, they need to try to shift it. They need to try to get it right. And if they get it right, they just go on their merry way. But if they don't, they might have to bring in another axle. They might have to bring in another trailer. So you need to get it right.
I'm not aware of any statute or rule that would allow any kind of variance, but we don't do enforcement. That's DPS and OCC, and I would speculate. I've got a trooper down here who used to be that's nodding with me that there is some variance given on a permit. And I think it probably depends on the port of entry, on the officer, things of that nature.
For Indiana, CBED, I don't know of a variance that's built in, and when the reports come across, there's generally no mercy, in my experience. They'll pull the permit if it's over. They'll allow you to shift or whatever may need to happen to order a new permit, but there isn't a variance or percentage.
How many strikes does a company get before they are banned from obtaining permits in your state?
Well, it depends on what you did. And I will call you and tell you it's happening. And one guy said, "Don't threaten me." I said, "It's not a threat. I'm telling you that if you don't do what you're supposed to do, then I'll just shut your account down, and then you can call and get your permits, but you won't get any automated permits. And we may make you prove whatever you had a problem with." But I had one not too long ago that I check his permits every couple of days to make sure, because they lied where they were going, and they were going through construction, and they automated their routes not outside of the construction. And the construction people called me and said, "Man, they're knocking down all my cones. They're really doing damage." And I said, "You're lying on the permit. So you don't have a permit." And I said, "I expect that route to be out of your system and put in the correct route." And they did it. But, it's just they need to know that we are paying attention, and, we're also there to help you, but it would take a little longer because I had to get permission for the construction. So they didn't want to deal with that. So they just, but yeah, we can shut them down if we need to.
So Wyoming doesn't have necessarily a 3-strike and you're out rule. It's all contingent on what you've done, how you're doing it. If you keep doing it, yeah, there's variances of degrees. Throughout my entire career, we've only absolutely prohibited maybe a handful of companies from permitting, period, in Wyoming. They just weren't allowed to run in Wyoming. But the first step is obviously communication, and then we'll take away your self-issuing capabilities. So
we're kind of the same way. It's going to depend on what you did, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to slap your hand. We're going to take away your ability to self-issue, and we're really going to look at you. We're going to look at every permit. We're going to scrutinize it. If you're really bad, we're calling our friends in our enforcement division, and you're going to see them when you start, when you end, and your whole way. We've had to do that actually quite a few times. We're not necessarily going to shut you down. It would take a lot to be able to do that, but we will not make it easy, and we will make sure that you are being safe on the road. You're not taking out construction. You're not taking out bridges. We will try and make it difficult, not to be punitive, but to get you back into compliance.
Yeah, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but we have sort of an unofficial 3 strikes policy. It really depends on what you did. Like I've suspended people for 30 days for giving me false registration documents or whatnot, but we work really closely with the State Patrol. And, if you hit a bridge, you're running without permits, you kill a construction worker, we're shutting off at their recommendation right away. And we'll go through the administrative suspension procedures if we need to, but I can count on one hand the number of times it's ever gotten that serious. It's usually just, someone's off route, someone gives me fake documents and we suspend them for 14, 30 days and then turn off system issuance, or do the same thing where, okay, well, we're going to have law enforcement escort you now, where we wouldn't have before, to make sure. And they do a full level 2 inspection before you get moving. And, they'll often catch things that, you probably don't want them to catch. So just do the right thing.
Oklahoma, Matt, my permits manager, has the discretion to do whatever he wants to do, but there's no policy. I do know that we've locked out a few people when they've done something. So thank you, sir.
Indiana, if a seabed stops you and they call in the citation, it goes into you do go into a travel hold immediately, and then you go through the violation process of submitting a violation letter and I think that's more to assist the driver with contacting their company to let them know that something actually is going on out in the field. So we capture the citation number, the driver, their CDL, all the information of what happened in that stop. So there is an immediate shutdown, and then once you file the violation. But we have taken auto issue out on some carriers, but we invite you to come in, because what we have learned in communicating and opening those conversations is it's more of a lack of education on why they were stopped, or what they just might need some help. So they can come into our offices, or we can do Teams calls to have those conversations with the dispatch, the drivers, the pilot cars, the bucket truck companies. We've spoke to them as well. So to avoid the suspensions.
If height is such an issue, why don't states put more height information on their bridges?
Because we don't have unlimited money. A lot of these bridges were built before stuff started getting really big. We have a policy now in Iowa where any new structure built after a certain point has to be a minimum height of, I believe, 16 or 16 and a half feet high. But some of these bridges are 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, and things weren't as big back then, or at least weren't moved as much back then. And it's just, we're not going to tear them down. We have to wait for those bridges to age out and then be rebuilt. And hopefully the surrounding geography allows for that bridge to be built higher. But we're trying, as we work through replacements, we're making them wider and bigger to accommodate more lanes and more height underneath. Below a certain height, they are required to sign them. I think it's 14.6 and below of everything in Iowa is signed, but above that, they're not. I don't know the reasoning behind it. I know it would be significantly cost prohibitive potentially, because we have 9,000 plus bridges in my state that we'd have to do that too. But
most of ours are marked. Part of your problem is that you do an overlay and you mill 3 and you put back 4 or something. All of a sudden that changes, and you've got to count on your engineers and your inspectors to make sure and measure that. Then you have to go put a new sign up every time you have something.
And another problem is, who owns the bridge? Is it the railroads? Is it the DOT? Is it the locality? Is it some guy because he owns the property? So that's another problem. In Virginia, I will tell you that our VDOT has a public-facing website. It's called TruckWeb, that you can go to, and it will give you every single clearance for every single bridge. So if it's something that's not marked, you can go to that website and find it, and it will tell you exactly what it is.
I'm just going to throw in two, since that was our last question, but if you want to ask who does it best from a carrier standpoint, Texas. I can't remember the exact number. If Matt's in this room, I want to say it's like 17 or 18 feet. Everything's posted. It's one thing that the drivers can count on. It's a consistency thing. We did a study once, and it was about the bridge postings, and it does vary by state, because the MUTCD just suggests amounts.
And I would also say, if it's something you really want a lot of, states are not necessarily allowed to put forth legislation. So you are the voice. If you want to see these changes, get with your legislators, team up with organizations like SCNRA, and go out there and find someone to help you make, state or federal requirements to get that done.
The final word there. Well said from Brandy Thorpe with Virginia DMV. Here's a big thanks to SCNRA for hosting all of those state reps, and to them for their candid insights, no doubt. You can find Overdrive's coverage of heavy and oversized hauling in our Niche Hauls archive that I'll post a link to in the show notes wherever you're listening. Overdrive Radio is on Spotify and SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, Overdrive's Facebook page, and any listening platform out there. Leave us a review there if you're enjoying these, and a big thanks in advance for it. We hope to see you out at Matt's this week, and big thanks to you for hanging through with us to the end. Overdrive Radio is a production of Overdrive, the voice of the American trucker. It's edited and produced by me, Todd Dills, with the acoustic guitar and other support of trucker-songwriter Long Haul Paul Marhofer on the big stage this week at Matt's for the Friday night concert, so don't miss it. The theme here is Legend of the Snake Man by Marhofer, featuring the guitar work of Travis, the Snake Man himself, Whammock, Terry Two Socks Richardson on bass, keys by Tisha Mingo Jim Whitehead, and on drums, Mr. Andrew Marshall. The podcast is backed up further by Overdrive's on social media coordinator Jasmine Campbell, senior editor Matt Cole, executive editor Alex Lockie, and video editors Lawson Rudisell and Andrew Glenn. We'll see you next time.